Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Ricardo Diniz. I was going to class and they were like, "Hey, there's a guest speaker that's arriving at Western today." And I was like, "Oh, I wonder who this is." And this one woman who works at Western, I was talking to her in the hall and she's like, "I really think you're going to like this guy. He's so inspirational and he speaks so powerfully and he's my favorite speaker." And I was like, let me take a look. And she gave me a flyer and it said the Toolbox Kit for Life or the Toolbox of Life. I forget what the exact title, but either way, I was sitting in this room and he was giving the presentation and I was captivated the whole time. Typically when you get to these events, sometimes the speaker isn't always that captivating or they're not telling the greatest stories. You don't really get that much out of it. This time, I was engaged the whole time. I was like, wow, this guy reminds me of me, like in some sense. Like, just pursue what you're going to pursue. Doesn't matter if other people call you crazy. Just going after it and trying to make a positive impact on the world. I could really resonate with a lot of the things that he said. And so I'm just very excited to have him on the show, to ask him more and to show the world this story. So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Harley. And I have to say that during my presentation, during my talk to you guys, you were just standing out with your energy and you were leaning into it. And you're like, I just knew that out of all those humans there in front of me, few of them were standing out, but I just had a feeling that our story was just about to begin. So it's no surprise that I'm on your podcast right now. And it's a super pleasure to see you again. And, I'm so happy to be here in what is one of my very first podcast video things. I haven't done many of these before, so bear with me.
I bet you'll do good. You're good at speaking, and all this is just a conversation, So yeah, What was the first time that you realized I'm a little different than the others? I'm an entrepreneur. I have dreams and I have goals and I want to pursue them. Do you have a specific time in your life where you're like, man, I have this goal and I'm going to do it no matter what people say? Was it from a young age?
It was definitely from a young age where I realized I was different, very different. I never really belonged to any tribe or group when I moved to London. So a little backstory here for everyone watching and listening in. My parents divorced when I was 4. We were living in Portugal, simple life, everything okay. And then my father, as a journalist, he qualified for one position working in BBC in London. And out of, I think, 300 people, he was first place and he got the job and he moved there. And a few months later, he realized that it would be a good place for me to grow up. And he came back to Portugal to negotiate with his ex-wife, my mother, and saying, I need to take our son to London. My mom wasn't happy with that. She's still not happy with that. I still have to hear it sometimes. But I moved to London and grew up in London with my dad and missed Portugal terribly. Didn't really belong to any of the groups with the English people. I was one of the few foreigners there. Maybe there was 3 of us that were not from England. And so that was pretty tough, not really feeling like I belonged there. And then when I moved to Portugal again, I was the kid that had lived abroad, so I didn't really belong to the group in Portugal. And so I had that sense of being different. But early on, I also felt different because my interests were different. I didn't really care about the team sports that everyone wanted to play, like soccer. I was very individual in my way. I didn't care about celebrating my birthdays. I really had to beg my parents at a certain age to, like, can you please just stop doing birthday parties for me? I just don't want them. It's okay. I'm good. I don't need that whole party thing. So I think from the age of 13, I never had a birthday party again. And that's okay. It's just how I am. It's fine. I'm focused on other stuff. And I feel like it's a hassle for everyone to have to come to my party, So I haven't done one of those ever again since about the age of 13. But the entrepreneurial spirit, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that there's people that have that. I just had it without knowing I had it, like perhaps a a musician who early on starts playing really well, like a Mozart, and he doesn't know how good he is. He just knows he loves it and he wants to develop it more. And so I knew what I loved and I wanted to develop those loves more. And I just started and never really stopped and allowed myself the space to suddenly see something else over there and, oh, let's go over there and explore that for a while. And, suddenly I was a TV presenter and I'd never thought I'd be a TV presenter. And I suddenly had a TV show when I was 23. I was living in Annapolis, Maryland, in the United States, and actually was invited to come over to Portugal to do this show. Didn't know I was in the US, and I said, I'm in another continent. It's not ideal for me to go back to Portugal now, but I did just to explore that new area, which is television and presenting and editing and all of that. And that was beautiful, interviewing people and kind of following in the footsteps of my dad a little bit. So that was cool. But then I'd come back to, the back to base and keep going, focused on my projects, which was to become a solo sailor, to one day have my own boat and sail alone across the world's oceans, reconnecting humanity with nature, whilst always promoting Portugal, my country, and our beautiful culture and our beautiful products. Many people don't know this, but Portugal is world leader in the production of cork, for example. It's an incredible product that science can't fully replicate and was used on the space shuttle and many other things. Cork, we know it as what we find in a good wine, but actually it has so many other applications, and it's something that I've been very proud to promote over the years, is Portuguese products, Portuguese culture, but also very focused on making the message relatable to everyone, which is we need to connect humanity with nature once again. We seem to have lost our way, sadly, and we seem to be paying the price in many, many ways. So,
Interesting. I have two questions off of that. First off, why sailing? What about sailing is so captivating to you? And also, what about sailing helps connect humans and nature?
Well, funnily enough, it's not about the sailing. My passion is the ocean and its nature. And as a surfer, I very early on started free diving as a way to connect deeper to the ocean that I was very scared of, and I still am. In fact, the more I know the ocean, having sailed over 100,000 miles, and the equivalent of almost 4 times around the world, the more I know, the more things I have to fear in the ocean. But I overcome that through unity, through really balancing out my own energy and making sure that there's no ego in decisions that we make and no ego in why I do what I do. So it wasn't about the sailing. It was a way of the surfer from the fishing village connecting deeper with the ocean and finding ways to do that. And free diving took me to surfing in bigger waves, and inevitably I became a lifeguard. And from there I started exploring other ways to be at sea, like paddle boarding, when that wasn't even really a thing that was invented, really, as it is so common now. I'd take the lifeguard, big, long, thick longboard and just go out there and paddle a lot and spend time at sea. And then I realized there's a thing called sailing boats, and we can live at sea. And so it was about living at sea and not so much the sport of sailing or the hobby of going sailing. And so once I started sailing, it's so complex yet so simple. You get from A to B because the wind blows. And I'm fascinated with what micro decisions can do in our lives. And on a sailing boat, you're just standing there and nothing's happening. But you put a sail up and now you're moving. And with the rudder, with it's either like this or a tiller, with steering in the direction that the wind allows you to go, because you can't go on all angles in relation to the wind and the boat. And so let's say you're doing 5 knots, but then I tweak a little sail a little bit by tightening it, stretching it slightly, and you see the speed increase ever so slightly by 1 knot. Now you're doing 6 knots. Well, 1 knot is 24 miles in 24 hours extra that you get. So that's already a lot more miles per month just because of one knot, one micro decision. But then you have more than one sail. So now you tweak the other sail and you observe and you feel the boat and you look at the wave angle and you tweak something else. And now you've gained another knot. So you went from 5 to 7. That's 48 miles in 24 hours. And, that you've just gained from micro tweaks that you don't really notice when you look at the boat other than the speed. And so that's what fascinates me in sailing, is using nature to be in balance with nature and reminding myself that we too are nature, right? So it's very, very special to sail. It has many disciplines. There's competitive sailing, Olympic sailing, America's Cup sailing. It's really a beautiful activity to do, even just cruising with a family. There's many families educating their children around the world on the oceans, and that's a wonderful thing to see, and it's given me so much. Some of my greatest friendships were sealed on the ocean, meeting other people on boats, and every time you see somebody with a boat, their own boat, that's a dream come true. Nobody's like, "Oh, I'll just get a boat." No, I mean, they've been planning that for a while, yeah. So it's wonderful to meet these dreamers who've made their dreams come true. I read something years ago, which I actually wrote as a quote in one of my first books that I wrote in the late 90s. The most irresistible human is the dreamer whose dreams have come true. And when you think about that, these are some of the people we really look up to in business and sport and music. These people have dreamed something and they're getting on with it and they're achieving it and they become attractive and inspiring to us. That's why we look up to, incredible humans like Madonna. Whether you like Madonna's music or not, you cannot ignore Madonna in the world. Whether you like Lenny Kravitz or not, you can't ignore that man's talent, or Alanis Morissette, or Michael Jordan. These are dreamers whose dreams came true. I'm reading the biography of the founder of Nike, and I got the book right here. I keep popping in and out of it. Let me just reach for the book. When you look at this, when you read what Phil Knight went through, the difficulties, the challenges. I mean, this young man was on a mission. He had a great passion that was fueled by his passion for athletics. And I am not reading this book. I am digesting it slowly. I read something, then I go and Google it, because it's beautiful to see a dreamer whose dreams have come true through hard work and risk-taking and failing and finding ways to unfail and learn from that. It's extremely reassuring for my own path, because for a very long time, I really felt very alone in this. And I think that's where the expression comes from, that it's very lonely at the top, because there's nobody above you. You report to yourself, and you have to really self-motivate, and you have to keep track of yourself. And people like Phil Knight achieving the incredible success that he's achieved with Nike, but many, many other businessmen and businesswomen, people like Oprah, people like the founder of Spanx, Sarah Blakely. I mean, wow, these are good people who are dreamers whose dreams have come true, and we're attracted to them. So I think that quote in that book is, it still stands, because we are fascinated by people's success, and we draw inspiration from that. And I love biographies. It really helps me to feel normal when so often I look around and I don't see many people like me at all, and kind of being at peace with that, especially through phases of great attrition and friction. And a lot of people in my first line and second line of humans in my life, friends and family, telling me that I should just stop what I'm doing and get a normal life. And normal life is me being me, I'm just being myself. That's normal to me, whether you understand it or not, So biographies over the years, reading Richard Branson when I was super young, just made me feel so normal because I can really relate to those guys. Like, oh, well, that's what I'm doing too. So they've already made it huge and they're good. So I'm definitely on the right track. It's very empowering for me to read other people's stories and learn from others, whether they, whether it does, it's not about them being multi-billionaires or whatever. It's about the mindset and how they got through stuff, focused on what their heart is telling them to do. And I think pretty much every major decision in my life has not been about the business plan, because many of those business plans didn't make any sense at all. They didn't add up, but I still felt I had to do it. So I just did it anyway. And so far, so good.
That's amazing. You said so many things. I wrote a lot of it down. And one thing that really resonated with me was the idea that just tweaking just a small, like 1%, tweaking the sail in this direction or making a change there, it can add up to a huge compounding effect. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the book Atomic Habits. And it's one of my favorites, I guess, where they talk about just small 1% changes each day can really just amplify your growth over the long term, even every year. It's pretty amazing. And that really reminded me of how, like, the philosophy of sailing and how it ties in with the philosophy of life. Like, if you realize that every single action you take has such monumental impact, you'll be very careful, and you'll be very direct on why you're making these small changes, and the results will be good if you are a dreamer who has a dream in mind. And so that's amazing. I really like this quote of, the most irresistible human is a dreamer whose dream comes true. And I really could resonate with you just on a lot of these aspects of your family thinking that you're not living a normal life. Why don't you get a regular 9-to-5, Ricardo? Or why don't you do this? And it's like, well, my soul is telling me that isn't what I should be doing. What I should be doing is what I want to do. And yeah, I really respect that you pushed through those barriers and you said, no, I'm going to do what I feel is right. And I guess the next question would be, what would you recommend to someone?
I was just looking for my book here now to show you a quote that's in, it's not here, but just to pick up on that, just to reinforce on what you just said. There's a beautiful Portuguese poet called Fernando Pessoa, and he's really inspired generations from Portugal, but also around the world. And one of his most wonderful verses, and I'll say it in Portuguese and then translate it to English. It says, Deus quer, o homem sonha, a obra nasce. What this means is that God wills, man dreams, and his creation rises. So, when we are in tune with what our heart is telling us, regardless of our beliefs, whether it's a God-planted idea or it's just us following who we are, being ourselves, that's true. When we follow, the creation rises. Things begin to happen, whatever they may be. They may take longer than we think they're going to take. But if we stick to it and we really feel that we're doing it for the right reasons, it's always worth it, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still kind of on the fence about what I think about if there is a God or not, but I definitely can get behind the idea that if you look deep enough internally on what you feel you should be doing, you're going to get the answer. And if you don't pursue what your heart is telling you to do, you're going to be 80 years old and be so regretful that you didn't just try it. You were young and you had time and you had the ability. Why didn't you try it? Why didn't you follow your heart? And people like you motivate me to keep pursuing my heart and keep going, because, like you said, it can be sometimes isolating when a lot of the people around you don't have that many aspirations, or they aren't interested in diving into a deeper discussion about goals. And I guess it's great advice from you to check out these biographies, because we aren't alone as entrepreneurs or as dreamers, and there's people out there like us. And honestly, the internet's been a really useful tool. I've interviewed a lot of different people from around the world that I would have no possibility of meeting at the moment, and I've learned so much just through the connecting with the like-minded people. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, thank you for doing what you do. It makes an impact. And I guess even people who have said to me, thank you for doing this podcast, it's encouraged me to start this or talk about this or learn about this. And, I guess one of my goals with this podcast is I want to put an impact on the world that's positive. I want to be 80 and 90 and look back and be proud of what I've done. And I bet you have a similar
I was just going to say that you're doing a great job with this podcast. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you get that kind of praise and compliments from people, because I met you. You told me about your podcast. I went and saw some of your podcast. I went and listened to some of your podcasts and dipped in and out of a few. And you're doing a great job. You're doing a great service for your community of followers. And I think, especially at your really young age, you got so much drive and energy, and you're really doing it from that place where you can make things happen. You can really help people just by being yourself with your energy, and that's really beautiful to see. It's really inspiring. So thank you for what you're doing, because I was super inspired to meet you. I was like, look at this guy, man. The humanity is safe. We're good. If there's more people like this guy, there's more Harleys out there. We're good. This guy's great. So you just keep going as you are. And you said something that's so important, and I think that's one of the first solid cornerstones that I built with my self-programming was, you do not want to be 80 years old looking back and regretting what you didn't do. Like, I had that conversation with myself. I was probably like 10 or 11. And I could taste that frustration feeling that I never wanted to experience, And so I kind of had a strong word with myself, like, you make sure you do whatever you feel you need to do so that you're not 80 years old and it's like, yep, it's kind of too late now, So I never really forgot that feeling of not wanting to ever feel that frustration of something I didn't do, So yeah, it's good that you mentioned that, because that's actually probably one of the very first solid programmings I did to myself. I was about 10 or 11. So yeah, maybe I was a little bit different. Yeah.
That's awesome that you had that ability to even download a program and think about it at that young of age. It's amazing. And one thing, I'm going to bring back the birthdays. You were mentioning birthdays. And one thing, I'm kind of similar. I'm like, you don't have to celebrate my birthday. But one of my favorite phrases, when I always say to someone, oh, happy birthday, you're 21, halfway to 42. And they always are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, time is quick. It makes them think, where are you going to be in when you're 42? And it kind of, I think about that all the time. Time is so quick. You're already, a quarter of the way through, or maybe less if life says you shouldn't be here anymore. But
yeah,
I like that idea of urgency. Like, the only time is now, the present. Stop hoping that, oh, in the future I'll have time. Oh, later I might have the drive, or oh, later I can form the connection. It's like, no, right now is the only time you have, and you might as well make the most of it. So, but yeah.
I mentioned this in my first TED Talk, which is in English. I've done others and they're in Portuguese. In my first TED Talk, I actually show one slide, and I say, I don't know how many of you have seen your own birth certificates. And then I change slide. So the first slide shows a birth certificate, and then I change slide, and it says death certificate. And I say, it is surprisingly similar to a death certificate. A birth certificate looks just like a death certificate. They just changed the words. And then I say, I wonder how things would be different if we were issued with a death certificate at birth, saying, you got 42 years, 17 hours, whatever. That's what we have left. I wonder how different our lives would be. They would be different for sure if we knew how long we had, you know. So yeah, I guess I was lucky to have that perception of time. I also had a perception of adult life seems to go from one box to another. So, like, we're born into a box called family. We're also usually born into a box called religion, and we're all born into the correct religion somehow. You know what I mean? And then we go into a box called school, and another box called college, and a box called a job. And our parents and grandparents would land a job and stick with it forever, and that would be their career. And, you know, we go from one box to another, and then the final box is the coffin, and it's over. And I was really allergic to boxes. Like, I was in no hurry to jump into any box. I just wanted to keep it light and flowy. And I was very proud that I, forever, I didn't have any documentation or IDs, and my name wasn't on anything. I was allergic to, like, having my name on stuff. I didn't want to be in any box at all. So it was until the very last minute that I had, like, a bank account, or, you know, because I just wanted to keep it light and flowy so that I could be free to do whatever, wherever, you know. And I still have that feeling. I hang out in my van a lot. I just spent a week in my van, definitely active. My computer's with me, and I had meetings, and it was with a purpose, but allowing plenty of time to do absolutely nothing at all other than spend time with myself, you know, and just be close to the ocean and take myself out to some nice food and go for walks and enjoy sunrises and just spend time with myself. You know, I really am, and I have to be my very best friend. I'm going to have to deal with myself and put up with myself to until my very last breath, you know. So I might as well know who I am and might as well get on with myself and, you know, write stuff and keep track of stuff that's in my mind and in my heart and just keep flowing, you know, just keep it light. So I think that although the scale of my responsibility has increased considerably over the years, I'm still that kid from a fishing village. I'm still keeping it light as much as possible and keeping track of that with myself. Like, are you keeping it light? Are we good here? Are we still okay? I try not to live in the future. I certainly make plans, but living in the future does create some anxiety. So I really try to live in the present as much as possible.
Yeah, that's really smart. I kind of fall victim to thinking about the future so much, and then all this present time is being passed by, and I'm kind of anxious. So, but I've learned to, you know, like you said, spending time alone, just without a distraction of a phone, without a distraction of really anything besides your own mind. I honestly don't meditate enough, or I like sometimes a run out in the woods is kind of my meditation. Just no one's bothering me, no one's gonna talk to me. Yeah, I find that really useful. But I wanted to ask, I want you to recount the story of when you were capsized and I can't see you for some reason, but
yeah,
maybe lost connection. But
sometimes you pop out as well.
Okay,
I've not seen you for half of our conversation. I'm here.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I think it's just doing that due to the Wi-Fi, and it'll all turn out okay. So yeah, we're good. It just caught me off guard. But yeah, I wanted you to recount. You said when you were speaking in front of the class that you were sailing alone on a journey, and you actually ran into a storage container. And I just want you to explain this story, because I found this incredibly, honestly, terrifying, but also amazing that you made it. And I just want to see what your biggest lessons from this journey was.
So this was a tough one. So it took me 5 years to get to the start line of my very first project. And in those 5 years, I was homeless 3 times. I was really pushing hard. I dropped out of college. I was doing everything I could on a mission critical path. So anything that wasn't critical to the mission, I would just avoid. I was just focused, and I was aiming for something, and then it ended up being something else. But within the same goal. So we ended up building the world's first student-built, high-performance, high-technology sailing boat in a university in Wales, Pembrokeshire College, in partnership with Portugal's leading engineering university, IST. And it was beautiful to see a student interchange. So students from Portugal went to Wales, students from Wales came to Portugal. And we built this boat designed by a top yacht designer, Mervyn Owen and Alan Clark. Beautiful boat. And I was allowed to collaborate with my own ideas. And so we're kind of, in Newport, Rhode Island is actually where this whole started. I had the university who was available to build, and then Mervyn Owen was available to design the boat. And we were in Newport, Rhode Island, drawing on a napkin in a restaurant, like, okay, and I have these ideas. And it's like, oh, that's good. We could integrate that. And we built this beautiful boat. And I wrote to over 4,000 companies until one actually said yes, finally. And so by the time we have this boat, and by the time I'm sailing this boat, it's not just a boat and sailing. It's this whole conclusion of many, many decisions and risk-taking, and feeling many times that I was failing because I wasn't really getting anywhere. And I was seeing other people getting there, and I wasn't. And I'm like, yeah, I know, they're from England, they're from France, it's different there. And I was selling a product for which there was no demand, for which there was little understanding. Companies didn't even understand, like, wait, boat, sailing, our logo on the sail, and you go far away behind the horizon. Why is that good for my business, So that taught me a lot about business, as I was trying to understand their side and try to make them understand my side. And that helped me a lot with what I do today in terms of business coaching. It made me accidentally create a communication agency where, we were helping companies communicate and helping people get to their goals and objectives. So by the time I have this beautiful boat, and it was only 21 foot long, I'm sailing it to Brazil. The godmother is one of Portugal's most loved people. She's an incredible athlete, Rosa Mota. She won the Olympic gold in marathon in Seoul, Korea, I believe, in 1988. And years later, she was the godmother of my first boat. We had 5 low-flying airplanes flying over the boat as it left from Lisbon, Portugal, on my way to Brazil. And sadly, there's a lot of trash out on the ocean. I've seen a floating car. I mean, these things fall off the ships in storms. And many times shipping containers, cargo containers, they fall off the ships. Sometimes intentionally, as a side business, they kind of screw the insurance companies and all that. And there's about 80,000 shipping containers on the world's oceans right now at any given moment, because there's a lot of ships and a lot of these little 40-foot metal boxes fall into the ocean. And depending on the cargo, they'll either sink straight away, and there's mountains of containers on the bottom of the world's oceans, or they will semi-submerge themselves slowly, depending on what's the cargo, what's on board, what's inside these containers. A few of them will be floating on the surface, and you can see them, but many of them are semi-submerged, and you can't see them. On the most beautiful day, you can't see them because they're, 10 feet underwater, 5 feet underwater. And here I am finally with my first ever project, blasting to Brazil, going pretty fast, faster than I would like to go. But she's a really beautiful, fast boat. And unfortunately, I smashed into one of these containers. And so instantly, the boat is filling with water. I'm on the ocean alone, very tired, feeling the weight on my shoulders of 42 little sponsors, one major sponsor, all these kids that built the boat, 2 universities behind us, Rosa Mota, the Olympic gold medalist. There's a lot of new pressure in my life and responsibility that I've never experienced. And it's tough. And I'm really feeling the need to get this job done and get it done properly. And soon into this trip, I'm now swimming on the ocean. The boat is sinking beside me. It was safer to be away from the boat because on the boat, you're suddenly static. The boat's full of water. It's sinking slowly. And the waves are now not pushing us along, but crashing into the boat, Therefore, it's like you're standing on a rock and a wave hits you, so you're going to hit that rock and hurt yourself. And it just became obvious that I had to get off that boat. And so I'm now swimming alone on the ocean, feeling really angry and frustrated with this accident and putting all the guilt and blame and like, how could I have done this differently? Trying to figure out, how am I going to get out of here? And there's all these kids that are about to be deeply disappointed because I've just destroyed what I felt was their baby. I never felt that boat as mine. I felt that I was definitely part of the composition, the formula that made it all happen, that put all this together. But it was their baby, and I had just broken it against the shipping container at 15 knots, which is pretty fast on a sailing boat. And so I think it was that frustration and anger of wanting to make things right that fueled my determination to get out of there, to make things right, So that was a really, really tough moment for me. And it was tough for years to come. There was a lot of judgment on land from some people in the sailing community, a few people, but it was enough to hurt me because I never expected that it would be the sailors that would not understand, that would judge, that would criticize, that would mock. And so that bullying was not what I expected when I got back to land. And it took me the best part of 3 years working with a sports psychologist to recover from that trauma, from that accident, and actually come to terms with that it was an accident, that I was in an accident. Not only was it an accident in what the word means, but I was in an accident, and that traumatized me. The noise, the instant moment of the boat filling with water, and everything that you've prepared ever so carefully with so much love and micro decisions, and designing the boat myself with this team of top yacht designers, putting some ideas into the boat, and they're right there in front of me, and working through the night, fairing the hull, sanding things down, everything just so it's beautiful. This was a boat that was representing the quality of the craftsmanship, but also the attitude of these young students. It's their resume. That boat is going to make them more competitive in the real world when they're looking to get their first jobs in the boat building world, in the yacht design world. So all of that meant that we all put so much love into that boat. So it was really tough for me to look at that damaged boat and deal with the fact that there was really nothing I could have done different to have prevented this accident, So that taught me about forgiveness. It taught me about dealing with criticism. It also taught me that one is more prone to criticism the higher up you go, the more you are visible through your actions. The more visible you are, the more you increase the probability that some people won't be happy with what you're doing because it shines a light on their own inaction, if you see what I mean. So throughout the years, I've actually made peace with haters, realizing that, pick a star, pick a major athlete, a major actor, anyone that's achieved anything, they got their haters. And over the years, and actually having met some of them face to face and seeing how they react and their questions and their curiosity, they're actually fans in disguise, So I'm good with my haters. I know they don't mean wrong. There's only a small group of them now. The group gets smaller and smaller as some of them become my friends. They hop over to the other side of the fence, But for a while, that was an unexpected angle of aggression. I did not expect that. I didn't expect any kind of compassion either, but I didn't expect the aggression based on this really traumatizing accident. So, yeah, I learned many things from that. It also made me realize the incredible team that were not just my friends, but we were the communication agency that I incorporated as soon as I got back to land. We were no longer just a bunch of kids. We were really solid as a company, as a team. The quality of our dedication and the results that we were providing to our first clients, I mean, it was good. It was good stuff. A lot of people would always ask me, like, who is your communication agency? How come you get so much press? Your events and your, the blessing of the boat and even the godmother. Like, who's behind all this? Who's your agency? And my answer was like, oh, it's just me and a bunch of friends. We're just kids, enthusiastic kids on a mission, And I said, that's the wrong thing to say. I need to start saying, it's my company. Here's my card. What can we do for you? And I'm glad you've noticed that we're good, So I was very proud of this team. And I guess that fueled me to really get out of there and find a way back to land to change a few things and just keep going better and stronger.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but yeah,
it really does. In my coaching, I deal with a lot of. Sorry, go ahead. There's a bit of delay here, so please go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so I was just saying, in a lot of my coaching, you do get relationship breakdowns. You do get unhappy couples or people who are going through a breakup. And in fact, one of my reasons to take the van for a week and go down south was to be closer to somebody that I'm supporting through a very unexpected breakup. She wasn't married that long ago, I think less than a year, and suddenly her husband just walks out with no explanation, and he's gone. I mean, gone. And she doesn't understand what's going on. And I'm supporting her in all the ways that I know, but we haven't been face to face. So she was also one of the reasons I got in my van, drove many, many hours, and just said to her, I'm in town. You want to grab a coffee? I am 10 minutes away from you, and I'm right here if you need anything. And so a lot of the coaching I do is supporting people through stuff that's traumatic. And obviously, as we know, a breakup can be incredibly painful and traumatic. And one of the things I said to her recently, less than 24 hours ago, actually, was that you probably can't see it now. You know it theoretically, but don't forget that one day in the future, you will look back and you will be thankful for this moment. You will be thankful that this man is no longer your husband, because clearly this wasn't going to work if he's available to leave so soon the way he did. Better sooner than later, and you will come out of this stronger. Not that we need to be stronger and stronger and stronger in life, but this is going to break you down and rebuild you in a way that's going to work out better for you. And don't you doubt this for a minute. You will look back and you will thank this moment as one of the richest moments in your life. So accept that it's going to take time, baby steps, one day at a time, 1 minute at a time. Do what it takes to protect yourself, to get your support system around you. You're not alone. You will be okay, So I do believe in that. What doesn't kill you, if you've had to endure something terribly traumatic or painful, inevitably you will come back stronger. It's how muscles build, right? You break them down and then they have to come back stronger to deal with that damage, with that pain. And we can all do it. So I don't think there's any hero trait in people that achieve great things. I just think that they found a way through. It makes them stronger, better prepares them for other challenges in life.
That was very well said. Yeah, I'd say it's so important. I went through a breakup not too long ago, and it is very traumatic. But I think the only few things that could get me through were writing my thoughts down, but more specifically, being able to talk with people I love and trust. Like my roommate, he's a brother to me. I've known him for like 10 years, and being able to talk out your feelings. Without that, you kind of go insane, like technically, like solitary confinement is like the worst thing you can do to a person because they're unable to talk out their thoughts to anyone. And I noticed like I'd be so sad and then I'd just flush it out through crying or through talking, and it would completely change my mood. And I've started to realize like that pivotal moment was so transforming, and now I've learned so much, and I'm so glad that I went through it, honestly, because without that, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And honestly, I respect that you were willing to just drive and just, drop everything for that person. That's the person I want to be in those situations as well. So that's really admirable.
If we look back, and we don't need to look back that long ago, the family structure was very different. People would really live with their family. You didn't have elderly people living alone, aging alone, as you do now in fragmented families, which have become fragmented societies. We all seek community. We all seek that primal desire to belong to something, to belong to that group, that tribe. And we get a sense of that when we go and watch our favorite team, when we get together at birthday parties. Suddenly we are in that community. But unfortunately, I feel that vulnerability, because we're not getting the community where it should begin, which is family, which is really living with mom and dad, and sometimes the elders would live in the family system as well, like they do in many cultures around the world, in many countries in Africa, in Brazil, for example, in India, in Japan. There will be the couple, mother and father of the children, who live with their parents, and everyone's there for each other. It causes a different kind of stress, of course, but at the same time, there's that support. There's not the whole daycare issue, like where am I going to put my children during the day? And when you arrive home, the meal's already cooked because grandmother cooked it, and everything is much lighter when we are in a community. And it's beautiful to see many, many people now in Portugal, especially, that I've been aware of, are leaving the cities, going back into nature and building their own communities, living in community, because really we are not solitary creatures. We do seek partnership, which is also why it hurts so much when relationships don't work out. So I'm sorry you've gone through that, but like you said, it's part of life, and it's part of what makes you who you are today. So I think it's how we handle the hardships. It's how ideally we should make these separations civilized, and find a way, if appropriate, to keep in touch, maybe as distant friends, but still there. Like, you shared moments with that person and shared intimacy with that person, and it's sad when that's over, but it's also special if somehow we can keep in touch. I mean, I have a painting here in my living room which was created by my first ever girlfriend, and I waited. I was in no hurry to have a girlfriend. Like, everybody else had a relationship except me. I thought that, I've only got one shot at my first time with somebody, my first time in intimacy. I want it to be special and meaningful. I want to be in love with that person. And I was lucky that I met someone who felt exactly the same. And, we would lay on her mother's house had a balcony with a roof, and we would lay on that roof looking up at the stars, talking about our lives. And we started as friends, and we became very close friends, and that transitioned into our first relationship and our first love. And she was telling me that she wanted to be a performer, maybe an artist, maybe a singer or an actress or something, and she's exactly that today. And I was saying what I wanted to be and achieve, and I'm exactly that too. And so we've really supported and celebrated each other throughout the years, and we're the closest of friends to this day. I called her this morning, and she didn't answer it, and she returned the call. I couldn't answer, so I'm going to try again tomorrow. Just, how you doing? And we probably speak on the phone 2-3 times a month, and we meet as much as we can. And she's a great friend, you know. And we were a couple many years ago, and you know, we've still kept in touch, and it's great. And we're the best of friends, you know. So it's great to also honor what was. And sometimes it doesn't work, you know. Sometimes it's nasty, it's toxic or whatever. But if it's a breakup because of life gravitating in different directions, I think it's quite special if there's a way to keep in touch. There's boundaries, there's an agreement on how you keep in touch, also respecting their next relationships, you know. But it's really, I think, quite heartwarming when we can say, you know what, we were so important to each other for that moment in time. We should never forget that, and we should always honor that. And so I'm here for you if you need anything, you know. I've been able to do that with my relationships, and I've kept in touch with some wonderful women who were very important in that moment in time in my life. So yeah, there's a lot to learn in relationships, and there's a lot to learn about ourselves in relationships, and how they trigger all the childhood stuff that happened, you know. So yeah, I get a lot of that in the coaching that I do, dealing with people's relationships, whether they're in a relationship or dealing with relationships that are no longer there.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I really respect that. You know, we had to separate, but now, you know, we can still be friends and cordial, and we have history together, and there's something to having a history with someone. I think it correlates directly even with friendships that aren't romantic. I grew up in this small Christian school, and my closest friends are still the people that went to that school that I've shared that history with. And sometimes people have this perception of, oh, we haven't talked in X number of years. Oh, I'll just write them off. Oh, they're not good enough for me, or they don't care about me. And I've tried to like slice through that every time and just reach out to different people. And that one little reach out can cause a relationship to form. And I'm very glad I've done that with some of my friends, because I'm like 4 years out of high school, and now I've created a net of high school people that I really still love. So yeah.
Good. That's wonderful. That's good to hear. That's the tapestry of life. It's the people we meet. It's that network that we inevitably create, you know. When I meet people that are in any way connected to Portugal, usually foreigners, whether it's somebody else on a boat or in their van, or just tourists looking at a map, you know, in the middle of Lisbon, trying to figure it out, and I speak with them and I approach them and I give them my card, like, if you need anything. And I say to them, you know, I seem to know everyone from the fisherman to the president himself. So if there's anything you need, I might just have the right phone call to make. I got over 11,000 contacts on my phone. So it's really hard for me to be stuck. Like, oh, I don't know who to call. Like, I usually know exactly who to call and get stuff done. You know, like, if I can do anything at all to make somebody's life a little bit easier or a little bit happier, whether it's a stranger or my best friend from my childhood, like, I will do that. I will do that for that person, you know, because I can. And that's one of the most wonderful feelings, is to be of service to others, you know. So yeah, I'm glad you've managed to do that over the years. And I'm not surprised, the kind of person that you are, Harley. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I feel like we're very similar in some ways. Like, you even just saying, I'm here for you in this relationship, or I'm willing to help, or I'm willing to serve others. And I feel like it really goes hand in hand with this idea of agreeableness and compassion. Like, I feel like we both are maybe high in both of those. And I've noticed that sometimes that can be a slight con. I have 11,000 contacts. Oh, and there's 20 of them who need help. Who do I help? Or do you ever feel slightly overwhelmed or spread thin, or that you give too much to people? And how do you hedge against that?
So that's my typical day. All right. That's divided into different boxes and different sections. Okay. And I think sometimes that's all I do is actually take the first phone call really early and just spend all day supporting people. And sometimes those people are my clients, because clients are companies and companies have people, and sometimes clients are people, and I'm just coaching one human or one family. So I found a way to break it down. Like I walk around with a clipboard with different pages and different pages of different situations, different projects. And so I think one of the ways that I've managed to not be overwhelmed, because I was overwhelmed, is to delegate it from my head to a piece of paper with a pencil sharpened by a knife. And the whole process of sharpening it with a knife and putting it down on paper, pencil, I don't know why, but there's something about the pencil on paper that does it for me. It really gets it out of my brain, allows me to fall asleep really fast when I put my head on my pillow at night. And I am so grateful for this clipboard and just bits of paper, just writing stuff down. And then you kind of connect things because you're looking at it from a distance like, oh, wait a minute, that works with that. And I can help these people by introducing them to this company. Or, it's one of my techniques to not allow the pressure to build up. I've also learned over the years to really adjust boundaries when needed, when necessary, to be able to tell someone that that's not okay, that I'm not having that attitude or whatever. I don't have to do that often, but it's not easy for me in my way of being empathetic to people and having time for people. It's not easy for me to say, I really have to go now, but I've learned that over the years to protect myself, to say, this is great. I'm fully present and listening to you right now, but I need you to know that in 10 minutes time, we need to end this call. We need to end this conversation. It was not easy for me to learn how to do that. And it's something I have to teach people who work with me, my closest team. That's something I'm teaching them all the time. Because sometimes we debrief all the time. And they're saying, oh, today I was on the phone with this client and they were just rambling for 45 minutes. And then they went into their personal lives and they're telling me all these things that I don't need to know for our work relationship. And I'm so drained. And I'm like, you got to learn boundaries, And I know what that's like. Somebody's pouring their heart out and you're like, I can't find an exit point in this conversation, but this conversation needs to end. I need to go. I got other stuff to do, So I think I've got a balance now. But I'm always aware of that. I'm always like, are we good here? Am I doing this right? Am I self-protecting enough? So yeah, I'm very, very self-protective. I have to be, because the better I am at doing that, the stronger I am, the more available I am for those that really need me to be, the best version of me all the time. I'm not going to say 100%. I'm not that ambitious with myself, but I need to try and keep myself in a good level of happiness and healthiness and balance so that I can be, the best friend, the best coach, the best father, the best whatever to my people. And I say my people because when I sailed across the Atlantic for the first time in 1996, I was 19, and it was a hyper spiritual experience for me. It was so challenging on many personal ways and so exhilarating that I was finally sailing across an ocean. And I was writing this book, and many times I was writing it in the dark, and so the handwriting's all over the place. And I was very seasick on that trip, mainly through anxiety. And so inside the boat, down below, it was even worse. It's like being in the back of a car reading a book, you feel the motion. So I spent a lot of time outside just helming the boat and looking at the stars and writing in this book. And one thing I wrote that I keep going back to, and it really helps me, it's kept me on track, is this manifest of what I want to achieve in life. And it came out of nowhere, and it's kind of weird. It doesn't even feel like it was written by me, and definitely not by a 19-year-old in the middle of the ocean on a sailing boat, right? So what I write is something along the lines of, I need to build a life where I can come to the aid of those who need me, where I have time for my people. And as weirdly biblical as this kind of sounds, right? I now understand what that means when my father fell very ill a year and a half ago, and doctors gave him 1 month to live. And I said, okay, I don't agree with you, Mr. Doctor, with all due respect, and I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on this project called Dad, who's an incredible dad. And I had a wonderful coffee with him today, a year and a half later, and he's really much, much better. But he became my full-time project. I stopped doing pretty much everything else I was doing, struggling to keep all the other fronts moving because I was so focused on my father. And you know, we got him back. He got himself back through some guidance and my presence and energy and recalculating everything in his life, from the bed he slept on to his pillow to the food he ate, and like what else might be killing him? Like what else can I bring into the equation that will help him? And so we got him back because I had time for my people. And the good thing about my people is that it does not mean my family. It does not mean my friends. It means the people that feel that I can help them somehow and that approach me to help them. And so those are my people. And I'm so proud to have stuck to the plan that I wrote about all those years ago. You know, build a life where you have time for your people. And I think that's the greatest luxury, is to have that total flexibility in my life, to have time for those that feel that maybe I can help them with something. It's the greatest wealth I know.
Yeah, they say the greatest gift is to give. I sometimes have this feeling of maybe even feeling bad when someone's wanting to help. But someone said to me once, "Why are you feeling bad, Harley? The greatest thing, I'm feeling so great because I'm helping you. You know, the greatest gift is giving, and I'm giving. So I'm receiving all that I need, and so that's awesome. And yeah, I guess a question I was going to ask you, it kind of ties in, and I think I know what the answer might be, but I was going to ask, what do you feel are the most important things in life?
Authenticity is a good one. It's so easy to be distracted by the car we think we should be driving. A car is an object with 4 wheels that safely, ideally, takes us from A to B. But somehow it's become much more than that. And the clothes we wear, Mother Teresa said something like, for a human to live a dignified life, they need 3 things. And I believe she said shelter, clothing, and love. And you think about that, and it's like, that's pretty basic. Clothing is something that we choose to put on our bodies to be accepted in society, because we can't walk around naked everywhere, but to provide warmth and protection from whatever environment we're in. How has that escalated into what we see out there in the insane, although sometimes beautiful and creative and stimulating, it's great, but what has fashion become, and how has it gotten to that where we have an ambition to buy those sneakers because they mean something of what I stand for or the tribe that I belong to it's pretty fascinating from a sociological point of view, but it takes our eye off the ball in terms of what really, 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 really matters, right? So authenticity, I think, has to be really high up there on the list, you know? And then it's empathy and compassion for others. If we are truly able to love a stranger, then we are able to love ourselves more. We are able to become a better person through that ability to care for others. Um, to me, those are probably the two most important things in life, really, is to be available to care for others, even if we don't even know their name and we've never met them before, you know. There's beautiful work there to be done on a global level where humanity, I mean, what else do we need? Do we really need the meteorite to be coming our way, threatening to extinct the whole planet, you know, for us to suddenly really get together? We are in the early stages of civilization because we are so infantile still, where one country somehow thinks it's okay to invade another country and kill innocent people, where we are divided by the color of our skin, by our language, by the very thing that makes humans beautiful and fascinating. It's how we are so different and how different people excel in different things. It is surely our differences that make us so beautiful as a species on planet Earth, the only place in the universe that we know for sure there is life. We don't know for sure that there is life anywhere else. We know statistically that there's bound to be thousands, if not millions, of planets capable of supporting life as we know it. There's the other life that maybe we don't even know that might, you know, really be very happy in sulfuric acid environments, you know. We don't know. We don't know anything. And so we're just like these spoiled kids that fight over silly things, you know. So we need to get along as humanity or we will not make it, you know. And it's really sad because the fact that we have different beliefs and religions and sexual orientations and different colors of skin, and we dress differently, and we love different things in different ways, and we all have our own special talents and special things to bring to this life. How are these things the things that are usually on the top of the list of what separates us and causes judgment and criticism and war and separation? And what a shame, right? I I think we need a little bit of help here. And I'm not sure where that help will come from, but I have a feeling it will be external. And I don't think it's the first time in the history of humanity that we've had external support, that we've had something, someone, they, an entity, whatever, that pops in for a little visit just to kind of give us a hand, give us a little bit of guidelines and inspiration as to how we should live. And so I'm kind of hoping that external help comes in pretty soon because joking apart, you know, we've made a mess of this and we need to be closer and get along. Through authenticity and compassion and empathy, I think those ingredients could really help us and be better at being human. Because being human now doesn't actually stand for something good. Humane, what does that mean when humans are doing what they're doing right now? You know, right now, all over the world. You know, as we record this today on the 25th of October, 2022, my time, because I know it's the 24th of October in your time, on your side of the Atlantic, there's been another school shooting in the United States. Like, what are we doing here, you know? What are we doing? Why do we live this way, you know? It's a great shame. And I have a lot of time especially out there on the ocean, where everything works. Nature works. It's perfect. It's never out of balance, ever. And I think, wow, what's up with us humans? We've achieved so much, and yet we're so out of balance. It's almost like we've evolved to a point where we are able to destroy ourselves and actually literally destroy our planet. But we've not evolved enough to be able to control these incredible skills and tools and technology that we've developed. We don't know how to master ourselves with what we know already. It's like we need to evolve a bit more to live in peace. And I really believe it's possible to live in peace. I play around with scale a lot, and I hope this is useful to you and to whoever's listening in. Playing with scale helps me put things into perspective a lot. If I know a happy couple who have lived in peace for 40 years, and their family is in peace, and their neighborhood is in peace, then that shows me that we can do it. Humans can do it. It's just when we increase the scale, we realize that there's conflict there, and couples have divorced there, and there's a fight over there, and there's a war over there. But if we reduce the scale, where a human can be at peace with themselves, and then in peace in their partners, and their relationships, and their companies, and their employees, and their clients, then it's possible. And that gives me hope that that possibility can overlap another couple that's living in peace with another family, with another company, where they're all in peace. And maybe John Lennon's vision can be a reality one day, that we can all live as one and realize that we really, really are one. I mean, let's play with scale again. Zoom out. Earth, how beautiful is our planet? Zoom out. It doesn't take much for you not to be able to see the planet anymore on the scale of our solar system. Zoom out, and you can't even see the solar system, just our sun. Zoom out, and you can't even see our sun, and we're still in the tiniest neighborhood of our own galaxy. Zoom out, and you can't see the sun or anything or any sign of humans, and you're seeing our own galaxy. But zoom out, and we now know there's something like 2 trillion galaxies with trillions of stars. We are, just like Carl Sagan said, stardust. Wouldn't it be great if we could just get along? Oh, how are we going to do this? I don't know, but it's in us, right? Apparently, because there's some beautiful partnerships out there that are living in peace. So we just kind of have to increase the scale, reduce the ego, reduce the aggro, and kind of like, hey man, look, I don't want to kill you. You probably don't want to kill me either. Let's figure this out. Let's just play a chess game. Let's not send the children of this country to fight the children of your country because you and me don't get along. Let's sit around a nice round table, bring your team and I'll bring my team, and let's have a drink. Let's get some nice food on the table. I'll share food from my country. You share food from your country. Let's play chess. Let's get this over with in a way that doesn't involve weaponry and killing children that go to war as soldiers. The average age of a soldier in Vietnam was 19. My son is 17. I don't want my son to go to any war. You know what I mean? Like, we got to be better than this. We really do. I think, sadly, it will take a massive slap from something cataclysmic, either generated by nature on Earth or the nature of the universe itself, that will just wipe out the way that we've become, so that there's a new beginning. That, I don't know if we're going to be able to do that with coming up to 8 billion humans, I don't know if you know of this, you weren't born yet, but we had an incredible global event created by a gentleman musician called Bob Geldof. And he created something called Live Aid. I believe it was in 1985. And Live Aid was a music concert with the most incredible musicians, including Queen and many others. And people just donated millions to help eradicate famine. And here we are in 2022, and right now, a child has died, another one has died, another one has died because of malnutrition. How? How can we live on a beautiful planet that's ever so small, in the grand scale of all of creation? How is there a human that's hungry right now? Like, if there was a hungry human sitting next to me right now in my living room, I'm like, I don't know who you are or why you're here, but you look hungry. Let me get you some food. If my neighbors were hungry, I would find a way to make them not hungry. If I know a friend who's hungry, a friend of a friend who told me that a friend, like, I would be there for that person, and so would you and everybody else listening to this. Where is it in the scale that we stop caring? Why are there people hungry right now? Why? There is more than enough to go around. What is going on here? Where is the reset button? You know, it's completely unacceptable that there are people right now that are hungry, that there are people right now that are refugees of war, walking across continents looking for a better life. This shouldn't be how we are right now in 2022, with thousands of satellites up in space, with incredible technology, with incredible wealth. And I'm not saying it's the billionaires that need to fix this. I'm not saying that at all. I know that it's possible to make sure that everybody gets the food they need every day. Logistically, it's there. There are mountains of food going to waste every year. What's going on? Why is the food not getting to everybody? Why are people dying? From the moment I started talking about this to right now, hundreds of people have died because they're not eating. You know, how tragic and primitive is that? No tribe would allow that to happen to their people. No community would allow that to happen to their people. When did we forget that we are a tribe and we are called humans? We are the human tribe, and Earth is our home. And what is going on? You know, we need to change our ways. We cannot have hungry humans. You know, that's just to mention one thing, you know, but that's so basic and primitive. Like, everybody should have food every single day. Everybody. What's going on? You know, it's terrible.
Definitely.
It's terrible. Live Aid was in 1985, and everyone thought that was it. We're going to fix this. Take my money. Millions were donated in hours. Beautiful. Humanity came together as one. It's not fixed. It's not solved. There was no internet in 1985. You know? How can this be with all the connectivity that exists? Right now, there's a hungry human out there. Homelessness. I was in LA in December. What's going on? United States of America, an incredible country, the land of opportunity. You can be anything you want to be in America. You can make it. Beautiful. It's in the air. It's amazing. You know, we can go into the genetics of that, and like how people came to fully populate America. You know, everything that happened, people that came from the world. The natives were there. They weren't respected exactly. You know, people came in competitive and strong. Why are people homeless in the United States of America? Why is LA, with all its glamour and Hollywood and all of that, why did I see streets and roads and avenues and people that have jobs, by the way? This is a different dynamic to what we're used to. It's not just drugs and alcohol and, oh, they had a bad childhood. These are people that are holding full-time jobs but have lost their homes and go home to the streets. What is going on here? What is out of balance here? Nobody should be on the street. It was the worst storm of my life was to be homeless, you know? but it was a calculated risk. It was kind of a choice. I was pushing hard in business. I was available to fail. I knew I was pushing hard, you know? And it's horrible. You know, I was hungry, but not that hungry because I found a way, and I was cold. I was always really cold because the most important time that I was homeless was in Dusseldorf in Germany. It was only 3 months, but those 3 months were terrible. I was invisible. People weren't even looking at me when I spoke to them, and I wasn't begging. I was not asking for anything. Sometimes I was just saying, "Good morning. Do you know where?" And they've gone. They wouldn't even look at me. I was invisible because I was homeless, you know? That's not right. They don't know me. They don't know my life. They don't know, you know, but apparently I'm not worthy because I'm homeless. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Like, oh, you're homeless. Are you okay? What can I do for you? How did you get into this position? Is there anything I can do to help you? Have you had a meal today? That's my script when I encounter a homeless person. What's going on? You okay? Because usually they approach me begging, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up? My name is Ricardo. Nice to meet you. What's going on? What happened here? You want to share?" They might not be comfortable, you know, in sharing. "Have you had food today? Can I get you something?" You know, it makes their day to not be invisible for those moments that we're talking. You know, so much more important than the actual food most of the time, I find. So I've sidetracked here a little bit, but I got to say,
Oh
Harley,
yeah.
it's so special for me to be in a platform as your podcast that allows time for these conversations to truly flow from the heart and address whatever needs to be addressed. So I really thank you for how you carry out, you know, this work and this mission that that is your podcast. You know, it's so special. And I like I said, I dipped in and out of some of your podcasts, and I really enjoyed some of the topics that I heard and how you go about this. And it's really important to allow this time to flow. So when I give an interview, it's like 2 minutes, 1 minute, 8 minutes in a studio, or, oh, this is just for a little story. So, you know, let's talk for 40 seconds. I don't think I've ever sat and spoken on mic for an hour, 22 minutes. So thank you once again for this opportunity.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
can
of
tell I've been
course.
speaking all day, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's good. Yeah, I don't necessarily know how to solve the homeless problem or the hunger problem. You know, those are both really complicated. But you were talking about there needs to be some kind of reset button. We need to not think with our ego. We need to be more compassionate, more empathetic, and more willing to love even just a stranger on the street. And honestly, some people that I told that I was going to have you on, they were like, "Are you going to bring this up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I am." Because they know me to bring this topic up. And the topic is mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms. I'm not sure what your opinion is of these, but they've allowed me to almost hit that reset button, and I see the value in people more, and I see the value in every incremental decision you make, and it almost has made me more of a lover of the world and of people. And I'm not certain what your opinion is, but I really do think, like, I've looked into the historical accounts, anthropological accounts, and then also the scientific studies that are going on currently, and I'm not sure they're for everyone, but in my opinion they could be an ego shattering method to loving and becoming more of a union with the world and with each other. And I wasn't sure your opinion, and part of my soul was like, don't mention it, but most of my soul was like, I really want to hear his perspective on this.
I'm very, very glad you mentioned that. Again, we can play with scale. It's so enjoyable to have a glass of wine with a friend, with friends, with a relationship, you know, dinner, open a bottle of wine. 3 bottles of wine, well, maybe that's a bit too much, right? Weed is fantastic. Weed is helping reduce suicide rates, reduce depression, if you overdo it, it's not ideal. Same applies to mushrooms. Psychedelic mushrooms is what brought my dad back. Microdosing my dad. Microdosing and observing and observing and observing and increasing the dose and seeing the Alzheimer stop. It wasn't getting worse. And even what really is to be described as reversing Alzheimer. And I know a lot of grannies and grandfathers out there who are being microdosed by their grandchildren without them knowing, because they're like, oh, I don't do drugs. I respect that. Is it a drug? And like you said, the context, the history, let's go back into tribes for a bit. We try this berry and it's like, oh, we try this cocaine leaf, coke leaf, and it's like, oh, I got all this energy. Try this little bean called coffee, and it's like, oh, wow, So we have been pretty good at discovering what kills us, and those were brave people. Like, I need to try this berry. It might be interesting for my tribe, and everyone's like observing. And then Jonathan died because he ate the berry, but we've taken note of that. Don't eat that berry, but maybe it could be good for something else. And it's incredible how we've evolved through the knowledge of plants and fruit and farming, but the scale is what spoils it. So absolutely for it, absolutely for people who are using cannabis to support their depression, their suicidal thoughts, their challenges, but don't go smoking joints from sun to sun, because that's going to screw your life and you're not going to get anywhere, I think it says it all, microdosing mushrooms to my dad got my dad back, and he's doing great.
That is amazing to hear, and I'm very glad I mentioned it. Sometimes coming from the community I come from, mentioning mushrooms, I'm now put in a box of druggy, bad influence, and I've kind of had to recognize that some people aren't willing to even listen to that kind of conversation about that. But the people that are willing, I'm willing to be that person. I'm willing to say it. And so, yeah, I honestly, I know a few people that are on, well, thank you. I know some people that are on antidepressants, and they've actually been cured through not just microdosing with mushrooms, but also consistent exercise, hitting the sauna, hitting a cold plunge, those 4 things. And I actually installed a cold plunge right in my basement. It's a freezer, and it self-colds and self-cleans, and hitting that is such an antidepressant, and hitting the sauna is a stress reliever. And there's so much science regarding all this. And taking a mushroom occasionally truly puts me in the present and recognizes what truly is important, and that is the people around me and the world. And I like to explore different options that help better my life and the lives around me, and I think all of those things help do that.
Right. I mean, I would not recommend heroin and stuff like that, because that's a completely different level, crack cocaine and all of that. But cannabis, mushrooms, along the lines of that, we've been using it since the beginning of time, and it's helped us. It's still helping us today.
Exactly.
So, yeah. My voice is running out here. I'm sorry.
No, that's
running
totally
out of
good.
Voice for today.
I guess, do you mind one final question?
Absolutely, of course. Go.
All right. What are your current goals? What is the next thing on Ricardo's plate? What is the next goal that you want to accomplish in this world?
Well, I'm very, very focused on something that I mentioned at Western Michigan University and spoke to the students about. But it's what I call below the line. It's not public yet. It's not something that I'm talking about publicly in interviews and things like that. We're kind of saving that for when the whole thing is solid and together. But I can summarize that our next mission will be the biggest ever. It will be truly about bringing humanity back together, emphasizing how we really are all one tribe, and how we really, really need to get along. And we have a really, really strong message and a strong platform to leverage that ambition of mine, to show that we need to reconnect with nature. And in doing so, we are reconnecting with ourselves, because we too are nature. And if we figure that out, I truly believe it can affect global change. And that's kind of, if you think about it, that's kind of what I've been doing all my life. But we're going to take it up a few notches. And I've been extremely picky with who is involved in this, who are our project partners, who are our sponsors. And I've been working on this one for over 10 years. And it's the timing now. And we're extremely close to that start line, because I firmly feel that we have found who that partner is that will give it global leverage and global meaning. And that's our focus right now, and it's what we're probably going to be doing for the next solid 3 years, but it will inevitably be a continuation of everything else that my team and I have been doing, which is cultivating human potential, supporting people in their projects and their ideas and their passions, and helping people through whatever it is that's hurting them. And I think that's probably going to be me for the rest of my days, but very much riding on the back of this next mission, which will be so far the biggest ever by a long way. And that's why it's taking so long to put it together, because it can't just be some random bank saying, oh, here's the money, have a good trip, you know. Well, there has to be a lot more behind where the money comes from. It's got to be far more meaningful, and it's got to work in a way that is way beyond me and my ideas. It's got to have the power of that corporation or group of companies, business partners, sponsors that will partner with us. We all need to pull in the same direction. And when you look at some corporations, they have hundreds of thousands of employees. Amazon, I believe, have 1.5 million employees. Include their family structure in that, we're talking, what, 4 or 5 million humans just because Amazon exists? 5 million is 50% of the population of my country, Portugal. So you can just send a memo to 5 million people, or to 1.5 million that then communicate to their families. That's going to create a little shift, or has the power to create shift and change. So imagine that there's a group of companies that together reach billions of people, billions of employees and clients. And, for example, one of our clients that have had me go to the United States pretty much every month for the last year is Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson is an incredible company. When you look into the history of this company, it now has over 141,700 people. And I've been coaching 42 very, very important people in that organization. I've made some wonderful friends for life there. 1 billion humans interact with a Johnson & Johnson product every single day worldwide. 1 billion. Imagine that Johnson & Johnson decide to do something on their labels of all their different products that has a message, whatever it says, something to do with positivity or inspiration. 1 billion humans will be looking at that and like, oh, you're washing your hair with their shampoo, and we all kind of read, shampoo labels when we're kind of like, imagine that there's something positive on there that gives you a slightly better day for that day because you read that. That's the power of corporate socialism, let's say. You can get through to your people, which is your employees and their families, but also your clients. And that's the kind of leverage and scale we're looking at for our next mission. Yeah, that's all I can say at this stage.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to. I'm going to keep following you, and if you want to keep me updated on the process or let me know when the project has dropped, I will be there to support and let other people know about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Certainly. And I really want to thank you for coming on today. It's your first time doing it, and you did amazing. You know, it's just a conversation, that free flow. I love it. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Harley. Thank you so much. And it's been great to connect with you again. And I'm very proud of you and how you do what you do. You got great energy. I'm sure there's many, many people around you, even people that maybe haven't even approached you to say this to you, but I'm sure you inspire a lot of people, and I'm curious to follow your path and see, you know, what you're going to achieve in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. You know, I'm not going to pressure you with saying I expect great things from you, but I expect great things from you, man. I think you're on the right track to do some good stuff. So it's going to be a pleasure to continue to build our friendship. I know we'll meet again. And if you need anything from Portugal, I seem to know everyone from the fisherman to the president himself. So just let me know if you ever want to come over, okay?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, thanks so much for all that. That means a lot.
You're welcome.
Right. Yeah, I've stopped the
All
recording.
the best.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. And
all right.